Olá, começa aqui o Religare, Conhecimento e Religião. Como tem sido avaliada a posição das mulheres no budismo? Quais as mudanças e os desafios ainda enfrentados por elas? No programa de hoje, eu converso com a monja Karma Lekshe, doutora em filosofia pela Universidade do Havaí, que está de passagem pelo Brasil para ministrar palestras sobre problemas contemporâneos na perspectiva do budismo. Seja bem-vinda, monja. Acompanhe as notícias da nossa programação pelo site da TV Horizonte. O nosso endereço é tvhorizonte.com.br. Pelo canal Religare, Conhecimento e Religião no YouTube, você acessa, comenta e compartilha os vídeos das nossas entrevistas. Não deixe de nos acompanhar pelo YouTube. Monja, como começa o seu interesse pelo budismo?
Well, when I was a child, I was born into a family with the name Zen. As a result, the children at school used to tease me about being a Zen Buddhist. So I got interested from a young age, started reading books on Buddhism, and I liked it very much, so I just continued. And eventually went to India to study, and then came back and studied at the university.
Você faz parte do budismo tibetano. Quais as características desta vertente do budismo?
Well, the Tibetan tradition is special in that it has a systematic study program, which makes it very easy to understand the entire Buddhist teachings. The Buddha taught for 45 years, so we have a lot of information where to begin. So, as a result, the Tibetan project of systematically presenting the teachings is very special. Second, they have preserved this tradition of philosophical debate. So this was common in the 8th to 10th centuries in India, and only the Tibetans have preserved it. So this is also really good for theoretical analysis of the teachings. And third, they preserve special meditation practices called the Tantric teachings, Buddhist Tantra or Vajrayana. In these meditation practices, we visualize ourselves as a fully awakened being. In other words, we imagine that we are enlightened 24/7. So this is an amazing practice to try to embody the qualities of an enlightened being from morning to night and through the night.
Você se interessa pela posição das mulheres no budismo, em especial. Inclusive, é cofundadora da Sakyadhita, né, que é uma associação internacional de mulheres budistas. Como é que, na sua perspectiva, na sua experiência, você avalia a posição das mulheres no budismo? E quais são as conquistas alcançadas pelas mulheres nesta tradição?
Okay, well, in theory, men and women are equal in Buddhism because Buddhism is about purifying our consciousness, our mind, and in that regard, men and women are equal. But over time, the patriarchal traditions of society have sort of influenced Buddhism, naturally. The Buddha was something of a revolutionary in that he welcomed people from all socioeconomic backgrounds, men, women, of all traditions, right? And this is very unusual. He also started an order of fully ordained nuns, the Buddha himself. So we're on pretty solid foundation in that regard. But in Buddhist societies, men and women are not equal. And especially in the realms of politics and religion, we have a lot of work yet to do.
Sim, sim, sim. Como é que o budismo entende a igualdade de gênero?
Well, as I say, men and women are equal in theory, but in social practice, we find that all Buddhist institutions are male-dominated, at least in Buddhist countries. Now, this is changing a bit in the West. As Buddhism comes to Europe, North America, South America, we find that women are taking more prominent roles. Things are also starting to change in Asia. But it's slow because these traditions are 2,500 years old. It takes time. But in the last 30 years, we've made remarkable changes.
O budismo se associa a outras tradições, filosofias, religiões, no seu interesse comum pelo papel das mulheres na sociedade?
Buddhist societies are varied. we find that over 2,500 years, the teachings have gone to many different countries. And when Buddhism arrives, naturally, it sort of integrates, assimilates with the local traditions. So some of these local traditions are very discriminatory. They have pollution taboos around women. And somehow, some Buddhist traditions have absorbed these pollution taboos, but it has nothing to do with Buddhism. So we've been pointing this out. The work that we're doing now is to recover Buddhist women's history and also to point out that many of these discriminatory practices have nothing to do with Buddhism, in fact. And we see that actually attitudes are changing remarkably. In just a period of 30 years, people have started to think differently about women's potential, actually to go back to the original ideas of the Buddha, that women and men have equal potential for spiritual development. So that's our main point.
Okay. Você faz parte da Fundação Jamyang. Quais são as... que ela trata de... é um projeto para a educação, educação para mulheres. Já são 15 escolas no Himalaia, indiano, em Bangladesh, também em Laos. Quais são as atividades realizadas por esta fundação?
In the beginning, our main activities revolved around literacy because I found that many of the Buddhist women that I was working with could not read or write. So this would include nuns who have dedicated their entire lives to the study and practice of Buddhism, but they cannot read, especially the nuns who were coming in from Tibet. So I started first with a literacy program, and then the nuns said that they wanted to learn Tibetan grammar so that they could understand the texts, the scriptures. Then they said they wanted to learn philosophy. This was unknown. At that time, it was assumed that only men would study philosophy, especially monks. So the tradition has been very much dominated by monks and monasteries that women were not allowed to enter. So we found teachers, and it was very difficult in the beginning to find teachers who would teach nuns. But eventually, the nuns were able to study and practice very well. Now we find that the nuns will be taking the highest degree in philosophy in the Tibetan tradition. It's called a Geshe degree. And this year in July, for the very first time in human history, women will be allowed to take this exam. And that's important, not only because it will enable them to teach the higher level teachings, but also it sends a message to the society that women do have equal capabilities, that you can do it too.
No Brasil, como tem sido este trabalho? Você está de passagem pelo Brasil, né? Você há um mês de vários trabalhos, vai visitar várias cidades aqui no Brasil, praticamente vai atravessar, né, todo o nosso país. Como tem sido esse trabalho, né, de educação para as mulheres, de discussão sobre o lugar das mulheres no budismo aqui no nosso país?
Well, I'm so happy to visit Brazil. It's been absolutely wonderful. I've met so many marvelous people, and people seem very happy, content with their lives, and very open-minded. So it's been great to talk to many different kinds of audiences, Buddhist audiences, but also university audiences, and also certain social action projects. So I'm very happy to see the interest in Buddhism here, and the fact that people of all different religious backgrounds seem interested in learning, finding wisdom wherever they can find it. So people have amazing questions. I'm very impressed with the level of education of Brazilians in general. And a kind of joy for life that is very special in the world. So I'm delighted.
Na sua universidade, né, como professora de filosofia, ali também é um espaço para essa sua atuação, desses temas do seu interesse?
Yes, teaching at a Catholic university has actually been a wonderful experience because they emphasize the Catholic social teachings. And in that regard, they're open to all different philosophical approaches. And I teach Buddhist thought and culture, I teach world religions, teach death and afterlife, religion and politics, and so forth. So this is a wonderful opportunity to do some comparative analysis about especially the Catholic perspective, but also other religious perspectives in dialogue with Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist social teachings.
No Religare de hoje eu recebo a monja Karma Lekshe. Ela pertence à tradição do budismo tibetano. Estamos falando sobre vários aspectos, em especial sobre o papel da mulher no budismo. Segundo bloco, nós vamos falar sobre outros aspectos da tradição budista. Vamos fazer um breve intervalo e voltamos já.